Namaste and welcome to the Hindu Parenting Podcast. The recent terrorist attack in Pehelgam, Kashmir has reopened the wound of Hindu trauma. We see a range of responses in the Hindu community, including denial and guilt. How do we process these feelings and how do we talk to children about this incident and the broader Hindu history? To help us in this task and situate our response in the theoretical framework of ideal Hindu parenting, we have Dr. Rajat Mitra, a world renowned clinical psychologist specializing in transgenerational trauma. Dr. Mitra was our guest previously on a widely heard podcast dealing with transgenerational trauma in Hindus. Namaskar, Dr. Mitra. It is very kind of you to come back for a second podcast with us.
Namaskar.
Thank you for the honor of hosting you. In the aftermath of the terrorist attack in Kashmir, we see some strange responses on the Hindu side. Example 1. A few days ago, at a prayer meeting for the victims, a young person, a Hindu, accused the organizers of spreading hate. Example 2. On many WhatsApp groups, some people belonging to the community that committed the massacre are making jokes about the incident. On being taken to task, there is no apology from them, but the average Hindu is quickly trying to defuse the tension and make peace by changing the subject. Example 3. The widow of the naval officer who got killed, after checking for his Hindu identity, is today calling for peace and love towards everyone, in denial that her husband was killed because he was a Hindu. We see denial in Hindus pretending this incident did not happen while going about enjoying their lives. We see guilt and fear to even mourn for the slain Hindus, forget about trying to ask for justice. Dr. Mitra, can you help us understand these strange reactions?
Uh, Thank you for inviting me and talking about these very crucial aspects. The first is that I would like to say that they may appear strange, but if you look at it from a psychological, psychohistorical point of view, it is not strange because that's the way the Hindus have dealt with such issues for as long as one can remember. One of the things that I would like to first talk about is what we call of as script or script of Hindus. The script are very basic beliefs, tiny beliefs that govern our actions, our motives. And when that boy got up and he said that you are spreading hate, he is he's doing what we call self-abnegation or you know showing magnanimity, which has been there down ever since the time of Ramayana and Mahabharata. Because of also our colonial heritage, we have picked up those aspects of self-abnegation. Self-abnegation means, demeaning yourself, lowering yourself, or sacrificing yourself for the sake of others. I mean, if I give you an example, the two most important characters in Hindu history are Sri Ram and Pandav. And their aspect of self-abnegation has been accepted and exaggerated by the Hindus. Like Sri Ram went to jungle for 14 years, sacrificed himself for the sake of the word of his father. He suffered so many humiliations, taunts. His wife Sita ji was stolen away by Ravan. He gave it all up for what? For giving the keeping the word of his father. Now, this is self abnegation. The other aspect of Sri Ram is where he fought bravely, where he stood up for dharma. But what we have done is that we have picked up the Hindus have picked up the aspect of self abnegation, where we see sacrificing ourselves, going through tribulations and suffrage as the only aspect. The other most important historical characters, if you see, are Pandavas, who also suffered endlessly for 14 years, they saw their wife being humiliated, and then finally, they even still could not believe that fight is necessary. So, this aspect of self abnegation and ambivalence has come to dominate the Hindu psyche, where we do not see ourselves as confronting people. So, therefore, we go on the other extreme. We are not today confronting others. Now, who are we up against? I mean, if we see, say, groups like the Abrahamic religions, countries, say, which follow Islamist ideology, they have a different script altogether. Their script is conquer the promised land. Like, for example, for India, for Pakistan, India is a promised land which they need to conquer, dominate, and subjugate. That is their script. The average Muslim over there, that is the script that they take. They do not seek the thick of coexistence. So, when we see that the fundamental fight between the two groups is between, where a large number of Hindus today, they have picked up abnegation and sacrifice as their script, while the script on the other side is conquering the promised land, which is us. So there is a conflict between the two, and we need to understand that. Our parents, our policymakers need to understand that this is the script under which we are operating. The second characteristic that today a majority of Hindus lack, which is confrontation. We are not a confronting nation. We are unable to confront because of the long period of slavery from which we never really went out, we never really moved out. And it was going to change because of the movement against the British, where we were turning assertive and using violence as a way. But I believe that Gandhi's nonviolent movement completely destroyed it and made us feel guilty. And so that we lost the power of confronting others directly who attacked us or who would go ahead and try to destroy us. So that ability to confront has been taken away, and only perhaps a very militant or a very strong assertive leader can make us see that and change that in our national consciousness. So the third thing which you talked about is the Navy, widow who is talking about peace, and that she wants peace and all that. Of course, all of us want peace, but peace cannot be attained without justice. I remember a famous saying by Martin Luther King, who said that absence of justice is not peace. And in the present state, justice is fighting and giving an answer to those people who killed our innocent people in cold blood. The Navy widow, my sympathy for her. I know she's going through a very terrible period, but she does not represent the Hindu. She represents right now a deeply victimized and traumatized mindset. So I don't think that we should see her as a microsome or speaking for all the Hindus, right now. She is in denial, but it is something important that we should not be in denial. We should not be, talk. Yes, we can talk about peace and, justice, but that justice is not by keeping silent and not by hitting back or attacking back. There is a movement in India right now, which is slowly getting militant. For example, when we talk about "Ghar mein ghus ke marenge," or when we talk about we will give a befitting answer to these people. So batenge to katenge, that's another one. There is an
Yeah.
attempt to get the Hindus together and understand that we are right now fighting for survival, and there is a need to change our collective identity from being passive and turning the other cheek to someone, to a group, a nation who hits back. Every nation hits back. Why don't we? I mean, this is something that you know, we need to see. And people who are victimized, our sympathy should be with them, but they don't represent the larger mass, or should not. The last part which you talked about is, guilt and fear, right? Now, victims very often, I mean, I'm just taking an example from the uh, widow of the Navy officer, right? Uh, Very often victims like that are asked to appeal for peace. For example, Rodney King in USA, after he was beaten up, he also appealed for peace so that things don't go out of control. That is sometimes done as a matter of fact, but that should not take away at all our resolve or our rightful act, what should be in such circumstances. Many victims also feel that because of what they have gone through, and maybe some victims feel that if India right now attacks Pakistan and people lose their lives, they will be responsible. This is a very common thinking in victims, so therefore it gives rise to guilt, and they sometimes appeal for peace. But it should be seen in that light, and no further importance, I believe, should be given to that. We should do what we need to do. And I think that our Prime Minister has already said that, and we are waiting for that to happen. Yeah,
Thank you for putting this in perspective. It's important, I think, that we deconstructed, especially in the aftermath of the Navy officer's widow's
sure.
appeal. I think there has been a lot of outrage among Hindus and a questioning of where are we going if somebody's talking like this, despite undergoing such a uh, heavy heavy casualty. It's taken a big toll on her also. So it's good
Yeah,
to have this perspective. Thank you so much for that. I wanted to come back to your point on self abnegation. It was very interesting to note that. And now
yeah,
both our epics talk about the other aspect of valor also. I mean,
sure.
when you say self abnegation, have we as a community done this over millennia? Or
Yes.
has this just come up during the period of the two waves of colonization? And if so, why do you think that we have adopted this self abnegation as the primary um, paradigm for ourselves, sort of not taking the other part, which is the valorous part, which is also there in equal measure in both the epics, if you see. So I'd like to understand that a little bit more. Is it something that has accumulated over millennia, or is it something that has come as a result of this period of colonization?
Yeah. You see, every nation has a script. I mean, for example, the Abrahamic script, which started with Moses, is that go and conquer the promised land. God has kept the promised land for you, which kind of, flew down, percolated down, and it is there for all Abrahamic nations, and Islam is the entire colonization took place because of this philosophy. America was the promised land. Britain, conquered the promised land. They built up colonies. The entire Europe, which was under, Christendom, they followed this, and they followed this as an ideology. So all the nations had a similar script. That is that go and conquer the, promised land, and that wait for you. Those people are there for to be enslaved and subjugated. Even the papal bull was, based upon that. And today, Pakistan, who also follows an Abrahamic ideology, follows the same thing about us, that they see us as a conquered land, right? Now, coming back to it as to why we developed that, we actually choose that. Probably it has been therefore for a number of reasons. Whatever be the reasons, but if you see, it is there in our blood. and I'm making a very, statement because I do see that every Prime Minister of India right now, from Nehru to the present Prime Minister Modi ji, there is some amount of self-abnegation, sacrifice that we are doing for others. That is something that validates a Hindu psyche, and we need to reject it if we have to really survive as a race, as a civilization. We need to see that we have chosen the wrong side. All our all our deities, our God, Sri Ram, the Pandavas, they had valor in them, but they choose to restrain themselves and go till the end. Until it's pushed to the extreme, they did not show their valor. And that is something that we need to change today. This is something which I strongly feel about it, that, you know, today the world is there goes on the philosophy of preempting. You see the motive of someone as trying to destroy you. You don't wait for him to attack you. You don't wait for him till the nation tries to, takes the first step. You can go ahead and preempt. That is the way all nations right now are going, and we need to see that we also need to follow that philosophy of preempting. If someone's intentions are not good enough towards us, we don't need to wait for them to make the first move. We can make the first move, and that is also dharma. I think that that is something that we need to understand. Uh, if you see, and I'm no fan of our first Prime Minister Nehru, but if you see his self-abnegation, if you see Gandhiji's self-abnegation, it was tremendous. They kept on giving to the Muslims, continuously, one after another. Uh, Nehru gave to the Chinese, for example, the Indus River Treaty. It was so unfair to us, but he gave it. He felt good about it. If you see Mrs. Indira Gandhi, she gave away the soldiers, one lakh of them without a word, right? She did not even
Yeah.
extract any price. If you
Yeah.
see Manmohan Singh, he said that the minorities have the first
Minorities.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, even our prime minister, even our present prime minister, he has given a lot, far more than what is necessary. And he does not come across so openly speaking for the community, for the Hindu community which has voted him. There is a defensiveness in the Hindu psyche because of this script of self-abnegation. That is what defines us. And that, I believe, is something that we need to discuss, talk about, and change. Because if that doesn't change, we will be forever in the survival mode, and nobody can survive when they are forever in the survival mode. They get exterminated, like we got exterminated in Afghanistan, we've got exterminated almost in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, everywhere else. And there is a certain script, a certain philosophy that defines it. Psychologically, that's what I see happening right now with us. And the more we talk about it, the more we discuss it and change it. We need to rise up, be assertive, and say that this philosophy is something that we need to reject. We need to accept the philosophy of valor of Sri Ram, the valor of the Pandavas, and we don't need to go through endless bouts of sacrifice to the point of self-extermination like they did. What they did was in another time, another period, and also because they had divinity in them. We don't need to follow that.
I want to bring up a topic that's topmost on the minds of Hindu parents. There's now, at least in certain pockets, with some people, an awareness that we need to start talking, especially to the next generation, so that they get to know about our history. But how do we
Yeah.
start talking to children about this incident and the larger Hindu history filled with waves of painful genocides? Nobody wants to talk to children about something that's painful, right?
Uh, it is, if it is painful, it means that we haven't dealt with the pain of it for ourselves in the first place, right? And,
Mhm.
pain goes away by talking. Pain can be made banal. Pain always increases if we avoid talking about it, right? So if you see many other countries, they have in an institutionalized way faced their pain. For example, let's take Germany. The German parents, it was an institutionalized policy to talk about Nazism and why Germany created two world wars. Their parents explained that to the children. It is part of their academic curriculum. And the children understood that and distanced themselves for it. The parents took a step for that, by saying that, all were not Nazis, but we gave in to Nazis. There have been many theories about it. For example, psychoanalysts, psychologists like Alice Miller, others, they have talked about how did, Germany, the most advanced intellectually in the whole world, could fall to the allure of Nazism. But they succeeded. And today, if you see the average German owns up, uh, who had nothing to do with that, collectively, that how his parents, his grandparents, his ancestors laid the roots for anti-Semitism and why they do not want to repeat it. The nation has to take that step collectively, and we need to do the same in India. If you see the Jewish people, the Jewish psychologists and intellectuals also defined the educational curriculum in which the teachers, parents collectively sat together and faced the most uncomfortable part, right? They said that, why we turn to becoming traders, why we, our ghetto ideology, certain other aspects of, collectivism, which they, know as wrong, how we became like that, and that led to the going through the Holocaust. So every nation has done that, has faced it. And I think that we also need to face our history, and we will become stronger in the process. There is a myth that if we talk about those aspects, then we become weaker. We need to know it is not so. An educational policy and also an a guidance by the intellectuals of the country is needed for us to come to terms with our past and with our past history. We will become stronger by then. We will not become weaker. That's what I think it's needed. If you see the current terrorist attack, we need to explain it in the same way that it exactly happened, and not sugarcoat it or do it anything. As a nation, then, we might say that we don't have a value for truth, for going till the end. And I mean, it is strange because our notion is Satyamev Jayate. And if we go for Satya, if we go till the end, then I think we will discover that it is something that makes us stronger. It doesn't make us weaker.
Dr. Mitra, we have many parents writing to ask us specifically, how do we start this discussion with children? What is your advice for them?
Okay. The important thing is that, when we start a discussion of this kind, we need to start it from a position of being comfortable ourselves. I know that it makes every one of us angry, hurting, and in pain. And we very often feel that by not talking about it, we should be protecting our children. But that is wrong. If we don't talk about it, then our children will get their advice from other sources. They will get to hear about it from different sources, and they will form their own interpretations. So the best thing is that it should be talked about at the family level so that the children get to know what the truth is, and they also follow that and are able to defend. If you don't talk about something, the children feel that there is something that is wrong about it, so therefore it is being not talked about. And they do understand that the parents are doing so in order to protect themselves. So the important thing is, yes, we need to protect our children, but we don't need to protect our children by hiding things from them or not talking about things. Children have enormous absorbing power. We need to talk in a child language. right? We need to say that, this Pahalgam trauma terror attack happened. We need to give the information that there were four people who did that. We need to talk about it, saying that yes, it was something highly ritualized. Yes, the uncomfortable aspects, what we know is that, for example, they asked them to strip, they checked whether they are Hindus or not. It is important for parents to talk about that. If they find that they are unable to talk about it, you have a problem of communication with your children. Do say that yes, this is what they did, and they did it in a very ritualized manner. They asked direct questions. They were very explicit. They did ask them to take off their pants. They asked them about their religion, and they killed only the men. So they killed only the men because of a very clear, specific thing that terrorists do, because they wanted the women and the children to stay alive and tell the story, because that is how their purpose of terror is successful, that there is someone who should be there living, do the story. There is also a close association between this terrorist attack and Hamas attack. I mean, there were tourists who were enjoying having fun. If you see in Gaza, near where in Israel, where the terrorist attack happened, when terrorists came from Gaza, those people were also at a singing concert. So they try to attack when people are enjoying, having fun, and in a relaxed mood, because at that time, the impact of terrorism is the highest. It is important for parents to talk about that openly and directly, and know that this is the best way to talk to children about the reality. One is not spreading hate, one is talking about what has happened. And by talking about it, you take away the power of it to internally destroy the psyche of children. What children get from their parents, they take as the truth. And then after that, they don't have also a need for discussion with other children, other people, and they accept that. Uh, Terrorism follows a certain sequence, a certain line, in the sense that uh, this attack is different because it is highly ritualized. They followed the rituals. Only the men, they asked certain questions, they asked certain directions. It is something that happens in every attack. And I think those politicians who talked about that whether terrorists, do so or not, I mean, they're talking absolutely idiotic. They're talking absolute nonsense. I have interrogated hundreds of terrorists as part of my work, and I know that after some time, the movement itself becomes ritualized. So it is important that you discuss openly, clearly with the children, and know that by doing so, you are protecting them from other influences or other things that might give them a distorted picture. And they will also find safety in discussing this in the family. I have discussed this in my family. We all talked about it. We all discussed some of the so-called uncomfortable aspects, and then they are not uncomfortable for my family members anymore. So this ability to confront, deal with, and not run away is a very crucial part of effective parenting. And I would request all Hindu parents to talk about this directly, openly, prepare it, maybe take the help of a psychologist or someone you know, but don't protect your children by not talking about it or distorting it. That is going to be very harmful.
I'd like to also point out here for the listening parents that there is an existing framework for discussing uncomfortable things, and we have all learned about it and we are actually using it. I know many parents who are not shying away from talking about good touch, bad touch. This was a big thing, say,
So,
10, 20 years back, to talk about sexual assault, rape, and things like that. But I think this generation of parents has made peace with that, in the sense they are talking about good touch, bad touch, how to recognize what is good touch, or what is, not a good touch, what is a bad touch.
Children have a great capacity to absorb information and act on that. That way you protect your children. That's very important, that what was uncomfortable once is not uncomfortable today. Like sexual assault was uncomfortable once upon a time. It's not so. And in the same way, talking about terrorist attack and the uncomfortable aspects of it, if you talk about it, then you will find that you are much more at peace with yourself and with, between your children.
Uh, the good touch, bad touch framework also has institutional support, though. I see a lot of schools and teachers also talking about it. So hopefully, if we can, as a movement, get there, which seems difficult, but at least the thought is out there. It's been put across. So hopefully, at least within families, we'll start working on it.
Yeah.
In our last podcast, Rajatji, you had talked about a theoretical framework of Hindu parenting that existed in previous times. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? And can that theoretical framework help us process this trauma better and to end this transmission of trauma to future generations?
The the Hindu framework, I mean, the Hindu parenting was based upon a sense of deep bonding that existed between the children and the parents. There wasn't such a concept of bonding, say, in the Western sphere. Uh, the in the Western sphere, children were seen as lesser adults, but the fact that, one is a child, one grows up, one has different stages through which they grow up to become an adult, that was not there. I mean, that was not there in the Western notion of development. So this notion of bonding that existed, and it was almost destroyed by the British, when they came in, because they saw that this existed, the bulwark of the family, the strong connection that existed, it was something that was destroyed by them. So it's important that we need to pick up that sense of bonding and connection that parents had with their children, and vice versa. And it was something that was done. It was very ritualized. It was something where marked by respect and deference. A lot of that perhaps can do us a lot of good if we pick that up. I remember that, when Ramayana and Mahabharata, both the serials came, they showed respect and deference towards the parents. And I would get reports from a lot of parental families is that their children who were so far extremely rebellious and were going on, say, antisocial paths, suddenly came on the so-called right path, and started behaving very differently. The antisocial behaviors dropped, the truancy dropped, many things dropped. So there did exist such a framework which has, kept us going through thousands of years. And I think there are several good elements, within that, uh, which helps us to grow. Like, for example, you take information from a person whom you are attached to. In the Western psyche, you start questioning everything from a very young age, and you question parents. You don't, take everything at a face value as told by parents. So that is something that has destroyed the bonding. I mean, if you see in the present day, in many Western countries, you are scared of hugging children. You are scared of even touching children because of the fear that the child may report against you, or the child may go ahead. I mean, this kind of a situation has, taken place and given rise to a lot of mistrust, between the two. This did not exist by and large in India, for a long time. And it's important that we prevent this mistrust from growing and developing. And if we can allow certain, elements of Hindu parenting to take over, then I feel that a lot of the things that the children, some of the problems that they are going through, like conduct disorder and antisocial behavior, can be effectively brought down.
So you are talking of the ashrama dharma. We had a clear-cut
Yeah,
thing, brahmacharya to be followed by grihastha, then
sure.
the vanaprastha. So you're juxtaposing it with a complete lack of any sort of structure to a person's
Sure.
course in life
Yeah,
in the Western world, right?
yeah.
At some level, you're connecting those also, isn't it? That we
Sure.
had very elaborate laid down sort of procedures or structures which governed
Sure.
our familial life, right? Is
Psychological,
that what your
social,
point?
it was
Yeah.
all integrated. And
uh,
life was divided into stages, and there were rites of passage when you passed on from one stage to another. They were clearly well cut, demarcated. They actually are very healing in nature, to know that now I graduate and I pass from one stage, what you talk of as graduation ceremony in the West.
hmm,
So
hmm.
these transitions, these rites of passage are very well defined in the Hindu system, and they are also very healing. I've seen that, for example, when the children they go from one stage to another, they see as going through a transition, a passing with collectively everyone coming together. Let's take Upanayan, let's take numerous such rituals. They are they're very structured, and they lead to a person to heal even if there are unmet issues or unresolved issues in life, and go forward from there to the next.
In the last podcast, you talked about how memory trumps history. For us, the important question is how can we ensure that our memory as Hindus is not destroyed by the history that is taught to our children in secular schools?
uh, I think memories carried in families, if you see, memories carried individually, and history is carried by and large through textbooks or through the government. So, as the family unit becomes stronger, as people talk about events in the family, then memory automatically becomes stronger than history, and cannot be defeated or cannot be destroyed. I mean, who writes, say, for example, about defeated people or slaved people? Nobody. I mean, if you see the our history, it was written by Britishers or British trained historians. It was not written by Indians. I mean, if you see, even for example, our literature, there is no literature or very little, almost I have hardly found. How did we feel as a slave, right? But if you see, there is much of a oral history, it is passed on. And this oral history has been the strength of India for thousands of years. We have carried it in our dialogues, in our images, but we have not brought it out because of fears. For example, the other day, I remember one of in our family, and my family is half Kashmiri. One of them asked that why is it that our festivals are all inside the home? And I said that was because it was not permitted to carry out Hindu festivals in the public. So she said, "Oh," I said, "but if you see in the South, almost all religious festivals, you see them going outside and doing. And in India, in North India particularly, it has only happened in the last few years." So the child who asked this question was really surprised. "Oh, I did not know that." I said, "Okay, you better do." Right? So the more we talk about it at the family level, the more we make it stronger for the memory and for the memory aspect to go together. In India, history has remained stronger than memory because of institutional power and also because we hid our memory. We decided to, put a blanket on that, a lid over it, so that it something that remained inside. I remember talking to a Sikh family once in an interview, and they said, when I asked the grandfather to say something about himself and the family, he said, in Hindi, kya likhoge? Just likh do ki we are a partition family. Later, he said that you are the first person to ask us, talk us about our family. We went through two murders, several sexual assaults, and shame and humiliation that we could not prevent that in the women. So we have kept silent about it. So I said, maybe it is something that you need to talk. He says, we have tried to protect our children. I asked the children who had come to our center for emotional help, and the child says, well, I have guessed about it. I said, you have guessed about it? He says, no, I know about it, but I don't talk about it because I feel that I'll be hurting. So I said, how about you talking about it and dealing with the family secret and, don't give it power by hiding it. For 3 generations, you have done that. So the grandfather and everyone, they had a family session where they talk about what happened during the partition, how they ran away, how they were killed, how the women were sexually assaulted. They grieved, they cried, but at the end of it, the child for whom they had come to us for treatment, he felt much better because he had been able to make sense of so many ambiguous losses that he saw existing in his family and which were no longer ambiguous. They made sense. They had found meaning in that. So that is what I would appeal to all the Hindu parents, that by talking about what has happened to our fathers, our forefathers, our ancestors, we give a meaning to our existence, and our children are ready to understand that meaning, that existence. And once you do that, you will find them healed and also able to not get defensive when threatening attacks or other assaults are made upon them. They'll be much stronger beings as a result of our talking, our disclosing, our communicating with each other, what has happened in the past. So that is what I would request all parents to do.
So I think to end with this, what would be some of your suggestions to Hindus to take from their heritage, and what are some of the things that they should absolutely drop? What is the terminology that they have to internalize? What are the terms that they have to reject? Because from today's podcast, I can clearly see that self abnegation, which has been a defining feature, is something that we need to shed so that we exist always. I think that would be my question. What should we
So,
lay emphasis on?
okay. I think there are a couple of things we need to lay emphasis on. The first is that Hindus are survivors, that we are survivors, right? We have survived uh, some of the worst atrocities, some of the worst civilizational assaults that anyone can, and we have gone through it and come out of it. Yes, we have lost large parts of our land. We have lost many of our ancestors who converted, right? But we still, in spite of that, we are there as a nation, we are there as a civilization. We have been able to retain the core essence of what made us Hindus. This is something that needs to be given wide publicity. We need to take pride in ourselves. Yeah, some time back there was a slogan, "Garv se kaho hum Hindu hain," but we must also balance it intellectually. गर्व से सिर्फ गर्व से नहीं कहें, because गर्व is seen as something negative very often in our religion and think that घमंड होता है. नहीं, genuine pride in being a survivor, genuine pride in our civilization coming up to this point, genuine pride in our creation of our civilizational works, our books, our science, our art, that there is no equal. All that needs to be given wide, it needs to be spoken about in that language, about the survivorship. The second is what happened to us. I give you an example, like what you said about that boy who said, "Why are you spreading hate?" There is a deep sense of defensiveness about talking about ourselves, and that partly has a slavery legacy. We don't consider it positive to talk about ourselves. It's a story I often share about Birla Temple. It is a temple that was built in 1939. And prior to that, for 1,000 years, there are no big temples in India, in the northern India, right? It was the first temple to be built. And I suggested to the temple committee that they can just put up a sign outside the temple. Lakhs of people visit. They can read that it was the first temple to be built after a long time, and it was built because the Hindus, they felt a resurgence of their identity during the freedom struggle. There was a mass. 1939 was the time when Britain went into war with other European countries, and there was a massive outflow of rage and feeling of opportunity that this is the right time to throw the British out. And Birla Temple was part of that movement. So why don't we just write that? Because we know about the Birla Temple as a big temple, but do we also know that the history behind it, the struggle that went on, it will fill us up with pride about ourselves, about our history. And at that time, they said, no, it will create probably a lot of stress and tension. So I said, but it will also create a genuine pride in ourselves, in our history, that we are survivors, that we have gone through enormous difficulties and come out of it without losing our essence, our identity. So that is the second thing that I would, like to say, because that would take away our sense of victimization, which is behind all this statements that are happening, that we want peace and justice and all that. At a national level, we need to shed the sense of victimization, the sense of self-abnegation, and mistaking it to be magnanimity. So these are the two things, what I would say that we need to take, from this discussion and take it forward.
To add to that, from what we have discussed so far, it appears that we also need to, shed the misplaced sense of responsibility
Yeah,
for every community's feelings, even the communities that have displaced us and massacred us. We
sure.
Hindus somehow seem to feel a responsibility to make sure that they are happy and they are not taken to task, in the sense, to maintain that illusion of brotherhood.
Yeah, it is. We don't need to do that. We need to take care of ourselves, and our first task is being self-preservative. We need to preserve ourselves, because if we don't do that, who will? The others are busy self-preservating, doing self-preservation for themselves. We also need to be thinking of ourselves as in terms of self-preservation. I agree with you entirely.
Yeah, at some point, I think we need to start realizing your feelings are not my concern. My survival is my concern.
Exactly. And I think the time is now. You said that at some time. The time has come right now to start thinking and acting like that. Self-preservation is dharma. Self-preservation is absolutely okay. I don't need to put anyone else first before me and feel magnanimous and go through self-abnegation in the process. I don't need to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Mitra. This has been a very cathartic podcast at this difficult time for us all. To our listeners, please listen to this podcast again and again, and make sure you start talking to children about difficult topics like terrorism and Hindu genocide. Do subscribe to our newsletter at hinduparenting.substack.com. Please follow us on social media. We are present on X, Twitter, and Instagram. We also have a website, hinduparenting.org. We announce new workshops for children. Please follow our website and our newsletter and share this podcast with your friends and extended family. Until next time, namaste.
Namaste.